It's needless to say that times have changed in the martial arts. Gone are the days when you could simply break down your adult curriculum and call it a children's curriculum. In this video, I'm going to break down the 4 main stages of development and why it's important to utilize them every class coming up. Hey guys, Andrew here, bringing you tips and tools for your kids' martial arts program to help you motivate, cultivate, and inspire. Hey guys, while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you're notified when I post new content every Wednesday. Now instructors have to develop a forward-thinking mindset to be able to generate results in every single class using the latest in science and psychology. Have you ever dreaded teaching a class of 3- and 4-year-olds? Have you ever been interrupted mid-sentence, every sentence when you're teaching a class? Well, if you have, then I have some news for you. It's not them, it's you. By the end of this video, you're going to be prepared to teach to your highest potential. You're going to be able to provide maximum value and enjoy what you're doing while building extremely strong bonds with all of your students. We've utilized these tools in our school for years and through many other schools as well, and now it's your turn. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Number 1 is our physical stage of development. It's super important that we keep this in mind so that we have the correct expectations going into every class. If we go into a class expecting our 3- and 4-year-olds to sit up strong every single moment of class, then we're only setting ourselves up for failure because at that age, their core strength is not quite developed enough to be able to keep them sitting up straight for that long. So we're going to want to make sure that we plan for that and keep them moving. Likewise, in the 7- to 9-year-old program, they're going to be able to do a lot of different exercises so we can push them a little bit further. A quick tip for the physical stage of development, no matter which age group you're working with, is to break it down. So we have our upper body, our lower body, and our core. So if a student is having trouble doing a kick, well, is it because their core is not engaging when they're going to kick, leading their top end to be a little floppy? Or are their legs having a difficult time engaging, so they're having a hard time staying up? Okay? Depending on what physical stage of development they're at, with their core, with their upper body, or lower body, then we'll be able to more accurately help that student grow. Number 2, the intellectual stage of development. This is extremely important to keep in mind for all of our different age groups because everyone processes a little bit differently. So when we're working with the little kids, like the 3 and 4, it's important to know that they don't have a large vocabulary because they've only been alive for 3 or 4 years. They only have about 3 or 4 years of English, which is not a lot. So you'll find that they pick up on words in a sentence, but don't fully comprehend the full sentence all the time. So it's important to keep that in mind as we're speaking with them or giving them instruction. Likewise, with the 5- and 6-year-olds, this is where they can start to stretch that boundary a little bit. We still use the rule of 3 with these guys. So whenever we give them direction, it's go do A, do B, and then C. And that's our expectation for that age group. You can always start to add a little bit more and a little bit more to try to expand upon that, and that's how we're going to get them to become even better versions of themselves. So by fully understanding their intellectual stage of development, you're going to be able to more accurately communicate with each of the different age groups. Now, with the older kids, they're going to start to be able to compartmentalize the information a little bit better so we can start adding more and more and more detail. A quick example of this is if we're explaining a punch. For a 3- and 4-year-old, all I would say is punch forward because that's all I want them to do. For a 5- and 6-year-old, I'm going to say punch with the front part of your fist. Okay, so I'm not going to say the first 2 knuckles or anything like that, just with the front part, boom, hit forward. Now with the 7- and 9-year-olds, I can start to be a little bit more descriptive by saying hit with the first 2 knuckles. And then when they get a little bit older, that 10 to 14-year-old, now I can start to say, start twisting, make sure you have a nice tight retraction hand, and those sorts of things. And that way, we're teaching the punch to their intellectual stage of development. So I really hope a lot of this is making sense to you guys. Go ahead and leave a comment down below and let me know some simple ways to break down a kick or punch that work for you. Next up, number 3 is our emotional stage of development. It's super important to keep this in mind because we're going to see a lot of different emotions coming out across the different age ranges. Here's a quick baseline for you to follow. All right. So for the 3 and 4-year-olds, what we usually see is that they have roller coaster emotions, which means it's super hard for them to control. So if that little 3 and 4-year-old needs to run off the mat to the safety of mom and dad, go ahead and let them do that, and then just let them know that it's okay. As soon as they calm down, they can come on back to class, and that is probably one of the best ways to handle if a student that age is running off the mat. Now, one key thing to keep in mind with some of our older kids is that they're going to hold back eventually, not because they're lazy, but really because it's either too hard for them or it could be too easy for them. So if you start to notice some of your 7 to 14-year-olds doing that, take a look at what you're actually expecting from them, and then ask yourself, is this too easy for them or is this too hard for them? And then modify it to fit their expectations. All right, on to number 4, our social stage of development. So for the little guys, these guys are going to communicate mostly through touch. So if they're really happy, they're going to be pushing, shoving, they're going to tackle and hug, maybe climb up your side or something like that. But when they're upset, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to reach out physically. So understand that if they are acting out, that is how they're mainly going to communicate. And a lot of times instructors see that as a bad thing. Either they're super happy and they're hugging, rolling around with their friends, and they say, oh no, Johnny, sit super strong, or else you're going to get in timeout. Oh, you're doing it again. Then they sit you in timeout, not understanding that they're having fun and they're learning as they go through this process. So don't fall into that trap. With the 5 and 6-year-olds, everybody knows this, but sometimes we forget that the boys like to work with the boys and the girls like to work with the girls. So keep that in mind when you're determining partners or lines. Sometimes having them split, boys and girls, can even lead to more effective classes, because you can do things like who can be faster, who can yell louder, the boys or the girls. And that leads to a little bit of healthy competition, and everybody ends up getting better after that. With our 7 and 9-year-olds, these guys can be really competitive, and they're also going to make sure that everybody plays by the rules. So they may even end up calling somebody out. Now, it's important to notice that if you have a bunch of kids, or maybe one kid in particular that is doing that, that is within their social stage of development. Try not to be too hard. Give them better choices to choose from next time, like maybe coming up to you quietly, letting you know, so that then you can keep an eye on them instead of just yelling out across the mat. That way you can set your ninja up for success. Now for our 10 to 14-year-olds, it's super important to understand that now these guys are growing up, they're super intelligent, and they can kind of think through what we're asking them to do. And a lot of times they're going to end up holding back. They can do this for a couple of reasons. Some of the most common ones that we see here at our school is that what we're asking them to do is too hard for them, or they think it's too hard, and they don't want to go out there and fail, and the important part, look bad in front of their peers. Okay, that's the main reason that they're not going to want to try. Or it could be too easy. When something is too easy for these guys, they tend to pull back that effort as well. So kind of look at what you're asking them to do and figure out if it's too easy or too hard. Now again, if you have a 10 to 14-year-old who is facing a difficult challenge in front of them, but they go out there and they kill it and they just do an amazing job with it, then you have someone who is above their stage of development, and that's going to give you something even cooler to go to mom or dad and talk about that and add a little bit of extra value to your program because you understand that. All right, ninjas, so by now you have a perfect starting point to go back to your school, jump in class, and add some amazing value to all of your programs. If you like this video or found anything within it insightful, go ahead and like, subscribe, share this video with all of your ninjas, and comment below with which stage of development you found the most insightful, whether it's physical, intellectual, emotional, or their social stage of development. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.